the baker and the first light in a bustling little town surrounded by orchards and streams. There lived a kind baker named Thomas. He was famous for his sweet rolls and golden loaves, but most of all, for his special bread called the morning light loaf. This bread was soft, warm, and so delicious that people said it carried the glow of the sunrise inside it. Every morning, Thomas would wake before dawn, knead his dough while the stars still shone, and place the loaves into his old brick oven just as the first rays of light touched the rooftops. The smell would drift through the streets, gently waking the villagers and drawing them happily to his bakery. But one winter, Thomas grew tired. He thought, "Why do I wake so early when everyone else is still asleep? Perhaps I will rest longer and start baking later." The next morning, he stayed in bed. When he finally opened his shop hours after sunrise, the bread was late. The villagers were grumpy, and the day felt dull. Without the warm smell of bread to greet them, people dragged their feet, children quarreled, and even the orchard trees seemed less cheerful. The same thing happened the following day. Thomas told himself it did not matter, yet deep inside he felt something was missing. Then, on the third night, as he slept, he dreamed of a radiant figure glowing brighter than fire. It was the spirit of dawn. Her voice rang like birdsong. "Thomas," she said, "you are not just a baker. You are a bringer of light. Your bread wakes the town as much as the sun itself. If you do not return to your work at dawn, the people will forget the joy of morning." Thomas woke with a start, his heart heavy. Could it be true? The next day he rose early again, though he still doubted. He kneaded the dough in silence, his hands stiff from the cold. But when he slid the loaves into the oven and the smell of baking bread filled the air, something magical happened. Outside, shutters creaked open, children's laughter echoed in the street, and farmers greeted each other with cheer. The village had been waiting for this moment, and Thomas saw with his own eyes how one small act of rising early had brightened the entire town. From then on, he never skipped a morning. Even on stormy days when clouds hid the sun, Thomas lit his oven and baked, and soon he began leaving small loaves at doorsteps for those who could not come to his bakery. The townspeople grew healthier, kinder, and happier, all because one man had remembered the gift of the morning. Years later, when Thomas grew old and could no longer rise before dawn, the villagers themselves took turns baking the morning light loaf, passing on his tradition. They realized that the true secret of the bread was not the recipe, but the love of waking early to bring light to others. And so, every sunrise, the town smelled of fresh bread, and the people remembered Thomas the baker, who taught them that the first hours of the day were the most precious of all. Moral of the story: when we give our best in the early hours, we not only brighten our own day, but also bring light and joy to others. The boy who painted the sunrise in a town by the sea, where the waves whispered against the rocks and the gulls cried at dawn. There lived a boy named Henry who loved colors more than anything in the world. While other children played with toys, Henry collected paints, brushes, and scraps of canvas. His small house was filled with jars of blue, green, and gold, and his walls were covered with pictures of skies, forests, and oceans. But Henry had never painted the sunrise. Every time he tried, he overslept, and by the time he woke, the sun was already high in the sky, its beauty gone. One evening, Henry sat by his window with his paints ready and promised himself, "Tomorrow I will wake up early. Tomorrow I will capture the sunrise." But when morning came, he rolled over and fell back asleep, and once again the colors of dawn slipped away. This happened again and again, until Henry grew frustrated. "Perhaps I am not meant to paint the sunrise," he sighed. That night, As Henry drifted into uneasy dreams, he was visited by a glowing figure made of light. It was the spirit of morning, tall and shining like the first rays of dawn. "Why do you ignore me, child?" the spirit asked gently. "Every day I knock at your window with golden hands, but you turn away." Henry trembled but spoke honestly. "I want to paint you, but I am too weak to rise so early." The spirit of morning smiled sadly. "If you truly wish to see me, you must find the courage to greet me. Tomorrow I shall test you." And with that, the spirit vanished. Henry woke suddenly, his heart racing. He knew the spirit's words were not a dream. The next morning, long before the rooster crowed, Henry forced himself out of bed. The sky was still dark, and the air was cool and damp. He carried his easel and paints to the highest hill overlooking the sea. At first, everything was grey. Then, slowly, the horizon began to change. A soft pink spread across the clouds, then streaks of gold, then fiery orange, until the whole sky was painted with living colors. Henry gasped. It was more beautiful than he had ever imagined. His hands shook with excitement as he dipped his brush and began to paint. Hour after hour, Henry worked, trying to capture every shade of the morning. But just as he began to finish, a strong wind swept over the hill. His canvas fell, tumbling down the slope, and the sea swallowed it whole. Henry cried out, his hard work gone in an instant. He sat on the grass, heartbroken, when suddenly the spirit of morning appeared again. "Do not despair," she said. "The sunrise cannot be captured on canvas. It is a gift that must be seen anew each day. If you want to share it with others, then paint it in their hearts, not only on walls." Henry wiped his tears. "But how?" The spirit touched his chest lightly. "By reminding them to wake, by showing them the joy of greeting the morning." Then she faded into the sunlight, leaving Henry alone with her words. From that day forward, Henry changed. He woke before dawn every morning, climbed the hill, and sat quietly to watch the sky transform. He no longer worried about losing his paintings, because the sunrise itself was the greatest artwork of all. Soon, the villagers began to notice Henry's habit. Curious, children followed him up the hill, and then adults too. Together they watched the sky blaze with light, laughing and sharing bread as the day began. Henry still painted, but now his paintings were filled with the joy of those mornings, the smiling faces of neighbors, the glow of sunlight on the water, the sparkle of dew on the grass. People from far away came to see his art, but Henry always told them, "If you want to see my best painting, wake up with me at dawn." The village grew livelier. Farmers started their work earlier. Fishermen sailed out with the first tide, and children began their days with energy and laughter. All of it, they said, was because of Henry, the boy who painted the sunrise not only on canvas, but in everyone's hearts. Moral of the story: the sunrise is a reminder that every day is a new beginning, and sharing it with others makes it even more beautiful. The Girl and the Morning Wind in a quiet countryside, where rolling hills stretched far and the meadows were filled with daisies. There was a girl named Emily who loved the wind more than anything else, while other children liked to stay inside and sleep until the sun was high. Emily rose early just to feel the cool breeze on her cheeks. She would stand in the fields, her arms wide open, as the wind swirled around her, carrying the scent of grass and flowers. The villagers often laughed gently at her. "Why wake so early just to chase the wind?" they asked. But Emily smiled and answered, "Because the wind at dawn carries secrets of the world." One summer, something strange happened. The mornings became still. No breeze stirred the leaves, no whisper moved through the grass, and the air felt heavy and lifeless. Without the morning wind, the fields grew dull. The birds sang less, and even the farmers' crops began to droop. The people shrugged and said it was only the weather, but Emily knew something was wrong. She missed the playful wind that once danced with her. She missed the feeling of freedom it carried. So, she decided to find out where the morning wind had gone. The next day, long before anyone else woke, Emily packed a loaf of bread, a flask of water, and a small flute she loved to play. She followed the silent hills, listening carefully. As she walked, she noticed the grass leaned faintly in one direction, as if pointing the way. Emily followed the sign until she reached the edge of the forest, where the trees stood tall and silent. Normally, the leaves would rustle with dawn's breath, but now they were still as stone. Emily wandered deeper into the woods until she found a clearing where an old oak stood. Its branches bent low, and its bark was rough with age. To her surprise, the oak spoke. "Child, why do you wander so early in the day?" She bowed politely. "I am searching for the morning wind. It has disappeared, and the world feels empty without it." The oak groaned, its voice like creaking wood. "The morning wind has been trapped by the keeper of silence, who despises sound and motion. If you wish to free it, you must climb the mountain of echoes." Though the path was long, Emily did not hesitate. She thanked the oak and began her journey. The higher she climbed, the colder the air grew, but still not a single breeze touched her face. Finally, she reached the top, where a crystal cave sparkled in the rising light. Inside the cave sat the keeper of silence, tall and pale, with eyes closed as if in endless sleep. In his glassy hand, he held a swirling ball of air that captured morning wind. Emily stepped forward bravely. "Keeper of silence, please release the wind. The world needs it." The keeper slowly opened his eyes, and his voice was soft but heavy. "Why should I? The world grows noisy with chatter and clamor. People sleep through dawn, ignoring its beauty. Why should I allow the wind to wake them if they no longer care?" Emily's heart pounded, but she remembered her flute. "Then let me show you," she said. She lifted the instrument to her lips and played. At first, the sound was small and trembling, but soon it grew bright and pure, filling the cave with music. The notes carried the joy of children, the hope of farmers, the laughter of mornings. For a moment, even the keeper of silence listened, and the ball of air in his hand trembled. "Your song reminds me of what once was," he admitted. "Perhaps the world has not forgotten after all." "Very well, little one, I will release the wind, but only because you carried its spirit in your heart." With that, he opened his hand, and the morning wind burst free, rushing out of the cave and sweeping over the mountains. It whistled joyfully through the rocks, rustled the trees, and wrapped itself around Emily in a playful dance. She laughed, tears of happiness on her cheeks, as the wind carried her flute's song far across the hills. Emily returned to the village, the wind swirling proudly around her. When the people awoke, they felt the morning breeze again, soft, cool, and full of life. Children laughed as their hair was tossed about, farmers smiled as the air refreshed their fields, and the birds sang more brightly than ever before. From that day on, the villagers woke earlier, eager to greet the wind and listen to its whispers. And whenever they felt the morning breeze, they remembered Emily, the girl who had brought it back with courage and music. Moral of the story: the world's beauty depends on those who care enough to protect it. And even a small voice can remind everyone of what truly matters. The shepherd and the morning star far beyond the hills. In a valley where sheep grazed on endless green fields, there lived a young shepherd named Daniel. He was gentle and thoughtful, and though his flock loved him, he often felt lonely. Each night, before he slept, he would look up at the sky and whisper to the brightest star, the morning star that always shone just before dawn. "I wish I could meet you," Daniel said, "for you seem like a friend who watches over me in the silence." One night, as Daniel lay on the grass beside his sheep, the morning star twinkled brighter than ever before. Suddenly, a voice as clear as the wind spoke. "Daniel, I have heard your wish. If you rise early enough tomorrow, you will find me waiting at the edge of the meadow where night turns into day." Daniel's eyes widened, and he promised himself he would wake before the first light. But the next morning, when the air was still dark and the world silent, Daniel struggled to open his eyes. He was warm under his blanket, and his body begged him to sleep. "It is only a dream," he muttered. He turned on his side, and by the time he finally woke, the sun was already shining. He felt a deep ache of disappointment, wondering if the morning star had truly called for him. That evening, the star appeared again, twinkling kindly. "Why did you not come, Daniel?" it asked. Daniel bowed his head. "I was too tired, but I will try again." The star shimmered softly. "If you truly wish to see me, you must be stronger than your sleep." So, the next morning, Daniel forced himself awake before dawn. He wrapped his cloak tightly and led his flock toward the meadow. The sky was dark blue, and silence lay heavy all around. Then, just as the horizon began to glow faintly pink, Daniel saw Hertha morning star, not far above the fields, glowing brighter than fireflies, brighter than lanterns. For a moment, it looked as though the star had stepped down from the sky. Daniel gasped in awe. "You came?" The star's voice was gentle but full of strength. "I come every morning, Daniel. The question is whether people choose to see me. Too many sleep through my visit, forgetting that the world offers them a new gift each day." Daniel nodded slowly, realizing her meaning. From then on, Daniel woke with the first light. Each morning, before his flock stirred, he would greet the morning star. The sheep seemed happier too, for they wandered into the fresh grass while dew still sparkled like diamonds. Other villagers began to notice Daniel's habit. Curious, they followed him one morning and saw the star themselves, blazing just before the sunrise. They were astonished. "We never realized such beauty was here all along," they said. Soon, the whole village began rising earlier. Farmers started their work while the fields were cool. Children played in the golden light, and the shepherds found their sheep healthier and stronger. The valley became known as the Valley of the Morning Star, a place where people cherished the first hours of the day. And Daniel, once lonely, now had friends all around him, sharing in the beauty he had discovered. Every dawn, the morning star still appeared, shining for those who remembered to look. And Daniel knew that the star's true gift was not only its light but the reminder that every day begins with hope if only one has the courage to rise and greet it. Moral of the story: each new day is a gift, and those who wake to greet it will find beauty, strength, and hope shining in the early light. The little bell of morning. Long ago, in a quiet village at the edge of a wide forest, there was a little bell that hung in the tower of the old church. This bell was special because it did not ring at noon or in the evening like other bells did. Instead, it was called the Bell of Morning, and it rang only at sunrise. Each day when the first light touched the earth, the bell would sing its clear, gentle song across the valley, waking the people with joy. Farmers would rise with a smile, children would hurry outside to play in the fresh grass, and even the animals would stir happily, knowing a new day had begun. But one winter, the bell grew silent. No one knew why, but the next morning, the village did not hear its song. The people slept too long, the children missed school, and the farmers' work was delayed. The same thing happened the next day, and the day after that, until the whole village became lazy and slow. Some said the bell had lost its magic. Others whispered that it had been stolen by spirits of the night who hated the sun. In this village lived a young girl named Clara. She loved mornings more than anyone else, because she felt that each dawn was like a gift wrapped in gold. Clara noticed how the village grew dim without the bell's cheerful call, and she decided she would find out what had happened. Early one morning, when everyone else was still asleep, Clara put on her boots, wrapped herself in a warm coat, and walked toward the church tower. The tower was old, with ivy crawling up its stones, and the door creaked as she opened it. She climbed the long spiral staircase, her lantern lighting the way until she reached the top. There she found the bell, heavy and silent, its rope hanging still. Clara touched it gently and whispered, "Why won't you sing for us anymore?" To her surprise, the bell gave a faint reply. "I am tired, little one. For many years I have called the morning, but lately the people have stopped listening. They sleep through my voice, close their windows to my song, and forget the beauty of the sunrise. What use is my ringing if no one cares to hear it?" Clara's heart ached for the lonely bell. "But I care," she said, "and I will remind the village how wonderful mornings can be. You must ring again, and I will make sure they listen." The bell remained quiet, but its bronze surface glimmered faintly, as though it wanted to believe her. Clara left the tower and walked through the forest to seek advice. She met a wise old owl perched on a branch. "Why do people no longer love the morning?" she asked. The owl blinked its golden eyes, "Because they have forgotten to see it. Remind them with colors, with laughter, with life." Clara thought hard about the owl's words. She gathered wildflowers from the meadow, bright as the sunrise, and spread them through the village square. She taught the children a cheerful morning song, one they could sing together when the day began. She even asked the baker to prepare warm bread before dawn, so the air would smell delicious when the bell rang again. The next morning, Clara returned to the tower before the sun had risen. She placed her hand on the cold rope and whispered, "Please, try once more." The bell sighed, then lifted its voice. A deep, clear tone rang out across the valley, rising higher and brighter until it filled the sky. The villagers stirred in their beds, and this time, when they opened their windows, they smelled the fresh bread, saw the flowers, and heard the children singing. Their hearts warmed, and they remembered how beautiful mornings used to be. Farmers hurried to their fields, children skipped to school, and even the animals seemed to move with more joy. The bell, hearing their laughter and footsteps, felt alive again. From that day on, it rang every sunrise, never missing a morning. And Clara was remembered as the girl who reminded the world that each day should begin with hope and light. Moral of the story: when we greet the morning with joy, the whole day becomes brighter.